Hello, comrades, and welcome to the end of the world. I'm not really sure it's the end of the world. The servers in Europe are down, taken down because Amazon accidentally gave a lot of people a lot of free coin that they spent to break the economy in a very quick and easy fashion. But the server's been down for a good 10 hours now. My company people are starting to switch to Albion Online to have something to do in the meantime, so maybe the world is ending, but I thought, hey, if the world is going to shit, let's make the best of it and make a YouTube video. So today I wanted to talk a bit about some crafting stuff, but also some other things. But mostly I want to talk about New World Database, or nwdb.info. This is one of my absolutely favorite websites. Here on the starting webpage, they have loads of interesting articles, like how void or drop rate works, how schematics, how you craft your legendary gear score item. This is an article we're gonna look at in a little bit of a while. It's a great website for many different reasons. So the first thing is that it's a database, as the name implies, right? So if you press a database up here, we see a menu with lots of different stuff. And here we can see that they list all the funny weapons and harvester pants and stuff, right? So this is a great view of just trying to find items in the game that maybe you don't even know exist. Because this game has a ton of items, and if you're not looking at the market for them every day, you might end up just missing some really, really great items that you will never know exist, right? So let's say that I'm after a good rapier for my next build. Let's go into weapons here, and we switch to rapier, and then we get a list of all the rapiers in the game, and we see we have pages and pages of different rapiers, right? But we're not really interested in the level 15 rapier, or the tier 1, right? So first off, we're just gonna sort it out, so it's only tier 5. And then I don't really care about having bad perks. I'm not gonna farm something that is not really, really good, right? So first perk I want is keen. And now we're starting to reduce the selection, right? After that, let's say that after keen, I want enchanted, because you light attack a lot with rapier. So now it's sorted out only the rapiers in the game that are in the section that we have said. So we can see we have these different faction rep ones, but they are limited to 525. Easily accessible, but not super good. So I think in this case, we're looking at the Putrid Fishbone. Hovering over it, we can see that it's a dex base. It got Keenly Jagged, Enchanted, and Keen. All in all, I would probably rank this as, if you can get a high gear score on it, it's one of the best rapiers in the game, right? So let's click on it. And here we can see that it's dropped by Putris, which is a level 60 mob beast located somewhere. And this is one of the negatives with the website, because it doesn't really give you a map to where Putris is located. We can even click on Putris here, and we don't really know much. So here we can see like the Putris loot table, and it lists a lot of items, but a lot of these can basically drop anywhere. They are in the same loot table, but they are limited. So in this case, you probably should ignore what this says, right? Except maybe the legendaries, because they are bound to Putris. So going back to the rapier again, it doesn't really say where it drops. We can look in the comments. The comments in this case doesn't really either say where it drops. But we can go in and click on Putris, and we can check if Putris has a comment. And here we see it's a little bit croc by the side of the road with a two-legged friend. Okay, not super informative. It doesn't really say where we need to go to farm this, right? But we know what mob drops it. We know it's a crocodile, so a quick Google search should net you information that it's a crocodile in Reekwater standing on the side of the road leading towards Windsward. I haven't seen him. I found this item now 5 minutes ago, so I have no idea where he is, but I think we should be able to find him with that amount of information, right? So this is just a great way to find anything that you might be looking for. If you're looking for recipes, housing items, or just really, really good stuff, right? You have some other stuff up here. You have a skill builder, server status page. We don't want to go in here today. It's gonna be sad. And just some other things, right? But one thing New World Database does really, really well is that it is a great way for crafters to see and optimize their crafting. So going back here to the starting page, we have this article here, how to craft legendary 600 gear score items. Already have it open here, and here we have a nice little article about a month old about how crafting works. So if we take weaponsmithing here as an example, it has all the different professions listed. So if you want to look for specific names or anything, you can find them, right? So we can see that if you're a level 200 weaponsmith and you use only tier 5 materials, the lowest gear score you're gonna craft is 500 and the maximum is 525. If you slot in Asmodium instead of Orichalcum ingot, you're gonna get an increase of 15 to your minimum and 15 to your maximum. So the total here would be 515 to 540 instead, right? And you can do this in all 3 categories to get that bonus. If you have the trophies, the weaponsmithing trophies, you see here that we will, for 3 trophies, we increase 5 per trophy for a total of 15. It doesn't increase our maximum gear score, but it does reduce our crafting span, so it increases our minimum gear score. So if we stick to this example, just using the base one, right? With the weapon trophies, we would craft between 515 and 525. You have the food buff, which gives you 515. You have the earring, which is the weaponsmith's mastery. You have the full weaponsmith set, which is 2 bonus points per piece and 5 pieces each for a total of 10. And then you have the town project. Town project is something that has been a bit weird, but they actually added a great menu for this in the last patch. So I think the default key is K. The key you press to go into your attributes section or your weapon mastery and that menu, right? If you click on your bio on the right side, there is going to be a list of all zones. And if you select a zone, you're going to see what buffs that zone has rolling for it. However, to be able to use this buff, you need to have a house in the specific zone that has the buff rolling. So that is something that you have to remember. It doesn't help if you craft in the zone if you don't have a house there. But you can also craft in another zone. So let's say Everfall has a Weaponsmith's Temperament bonus rolling. I own a house in Everfall, but Everfall is currently lacking a forge for me to use it. I could then go to, for example, Windsword and craft there. That doesn't matter. You can be anywhere as long as you have a house in the zone. It also only increases your minimum gear score and not your maximum. If you're crafting lower level stuff, this is of little consequence, but when you're looking towards the 600 one, that's actually really important. Because if you have all the buffs, you have a span between 595 and 600. And if you count that, that is 6 different levels of gear score that the item can end up crafted on. So that means that if we would craft on average 6 weapons, one of them will be legendary if we have all these buffs going, right? But if you lack the town project, that means that we suddenly go up from 6 to 11. So now you need to craft an average of 11 weapons in order to get one legendary. And if you're lacking the trophies, now we're increasing that 11 to 26. So then seeing a legendary is going to be pretty rare. So I would absolutely recommend, if you have the option, to gather as many of these buffs as possible if you're looking to craft those really high-end expensive items, right? So this is a great article if you want to check off and just see that you have everything that you want to use, right? But what you also can do is that up here in the search menu, you can search for something. So let's say I want to check out the recipe for Orichalcum Great Axe, and you can just write it here, Orichalcum Great and it will list you charm X, and then we have the recipe here, right? So we can press that recipe. It takes us to the website we're already on. And here you can, for example, see materials. So let's say you want someone to craft this for you and you don't have the skill required to see the recipe. Here you can go in and you can see what it's needed, right? So if we click here, it says that we have 15 tier 5 metals. And if you increase it, you can also see what happens if you add something else, right? So in case we would change our orichalcum ingot to tolvium, for example, we're going to increase the minimum gear score by 10 and the maximum by 5, right? For the top one, for the main material for the item, you can only show items from the tier you're currently crafting in. But for the bonus items, you could craft with something that is a lower tier. So timber, for example, is not a tier 5, that's a tier 2 resource, but we can still put it in if we like. However, it will give us a minus 15 gear score from the baseline. So here we have different choices. So if you, for example, quill bark might be super cheap, and you can see that compared to ironwood planks, which is the base tier 5 resource, quill bark, which is a tier 4 resource, actually increases your crafting by 5. So that is a nice one to add in if you have the option, right? But what's best with this page is not that you can get the recipe. The best part is this. So here we can see how the attribute is looking. So for this specific item, we can see that it's a 30% chance that it will craft it purely on strength. So roughly 1 in 3 will craft it purely on strength. Then you have different combinations of strength, dexterity, you have, every combination available, right? If you are crafting a weapon that only scales on one stat, so for example, Great Axe is only a strength-based weapon, right? And if you add in together all the versions of this, that would be positive, or something that you would like, right? So 8 constitution, 16 strength, that's still a great outcome. We don't really need purely strength, as long as we not get something we can't use, like intelligence, right? If you add up everything that you might want, the chance is roughly 48% or 45% maybe, somewhere around that mark, slightly below 50. And the other things are going to be things that you're not very interested in, maybe like constitution and intelligence. So about 50% of the axes are going to be bad, 50% are going to be good. And then we can look at the perks. You see up here that you have these 90%, 50%, 20%. You should ignore these, because these are if you craft it without adding Azoth. And if we're crafting endgame weapons, we're always crafting with Azoth, right? So that doesn't really matter for us. But we can go in here and look at the perks. And here we can see that it's a total availability of all these perks, and they all have about a 2.5% chance of crafting, right? So that means that, let's say I want to craft a strength-based axe, and I want it to have keen on it. So if I would craft, because in crafting you can force one stats, right? You can force one stat or one perk. So if you force the stat, you have 100% chance of getting, let's say, strength, if that is what you want. And now that means that we have 100% chance to get strength, so that is good. But we only have a 2.56% chance to get keen, which is down here. I pointed to the wrong thing. So that means that we need to craft roughly, what's that, like 40 axes in order to get one with keen on it. That sounds like a lot. However, if we instead force keen, so we have 100% chance to get keen, we're gonna get about a 45% chance to get one with a combination of strength and constitution that we might like, right? So let's say for an easy example, if you force keen, 1 in 2 axes instead of 1 in 40 is gonna be the combination that you were after, which is strength, constitution, and keen on it, right? However, that's the best way we can do. if you want to get one perk and one stat, you need to craft about 2 items on average to get that combination. However, then we're gonna get a gem. The gem is gonna be 100% if we use Azoth, and then we're gonna get the next perk. So the next perk we can't control. That's totally impossible. So that means that if we remove Keen from this loot table, we will still have a very, very low chance to get the second thing we want. Let's say the second thing is vicious, right? So if you're doing this, you're gonna need to do a lot of axes if you want a strength, keen, and vicious axe, right? However, that's how the game works. It's a lot of RNG, but we can reduce that RNG to as low as it's possible, and make the most of it, right? And then, as I said, if you have all the buffs, you're gonna get a 595 to 600 range. So 6 gear scores that's gonna end up on. So if you're crafting this keen with strength, we said that you needed to craft 2 axes on average to get that combination right. But only 1 in 6 is also going to be a legendary. So that means that we have 1 in 2 chance of getting the axe we want. And if we want it in a legendary quality, we're going to need to do that 6 times. So that's 2 times 6, which is 12. So you need to craft 12 axes on average to get the keen strength or con-based legendary axe. That's actually not too bad. The problem is still that you might end up with a legendary axe that is keen and ruinous, or refreshing move, or something else, right? But on the legendary axe, we always get a 3rd perk, which is the bonus of it being legendary. So we will have 1 additional chance to get a second stat that we might want, which is let's say vicious, enchanted, or keenly jagged might be a really good one. I'm not super knowledgeable about the meta and there anything down here and the specific things for the axe that we might desire to. But this is a great website to look for if you want to know how it works. But there's another thing, right? So here we can see that since this is a strength-based weapon, we have it's weighted in the category that gives more strength. But if we take something that is a bit more for everybody, let's take a pristine onyx, and we look at the pristine onyx ring, let's say, for example. So here we have a lot of different stat combinations, and they are all 4%. Because a ring is not made for a specific spec, it could be for anyone. You might want it with intellect or something else, right? So here you will have to roll a lot of rings. This is also why I try to do the whole keen awareness ring crafting for the company. If you're in the company and watching this, and most likely you are, because I have like 4 followers on YouTube. So most of the time, if we roll 1 and we force keen or luck or something else that we might desire on it, it's just going to be super random what stat it has. And what we can do to make that in our favor is that we simply craft enough rings that over a large number of players, someone will have a use for something. But if you're only crafting for yourself and you have a specific wish, let's say you want an intelligence-based ring, it has a 4% chance. So that means that if you force keen on a ring, you're gonna need, so maybe you don't need specifically full intelligence. Let's say you also have constitution intelligence, which is 4%. We also have constitution intelligence down here, reversed, which is 4%, and we also have full constitution. If you're sitting at full void gear, that might actually not be desirable. But let's say we have about 12% chance to get a ring with constitution intelligence or purely intelligence, right? So you're gonna need to craft a fair amount of rings to find one that will suit you. And that's the benefit of mass crafting, because all the other rings, the other 9 rings we had to craft in order to get our 10th, we can find someone else who has a use for it, right? Bit more of an advanced guide today. I hope you liked it. I hope I didn't ramble too much. And if you have any other subject you want me to cover in a future video, please let me know. Otherwise, let's pray and drink some tea while waiting for the servers to come back up about Christmas. Have a good one, y'all.